Hi, everybody. It's me again. Calm. Hi. Just want to thank everybody for coming. Welcome, 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 one and all. And we just want to invite Holy Presence with us. Dear God and our Father, our Creator, our Provider, thank you for a wonderful day today, temperature-wise. Thank you for your many, many blessings. All week we've been learning about how wonderfully made we are. And, you know, we've all fallen short. Every heart has its own sorrow. We all have different ailments, Lord. But we know that you provide for each and every one of us here. You've given us instructions on how to turn things around. And we are so very grateful for your daughter, Nadine. And now as she's about to make another presentation to us, Lord, I pray that your Spirit will be with us. Be with each and every one of us here. Help us to understand what is being presented and help us to be able to apply and be empowered to go and take our health into our own hands and not necessarily depend upon the hospital and the authorities. We do need them, mind you, but we can be empowered to do our own things and follow your local remedies. So be with us now this evening, we pray. Thank you for everything. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Awesome. Myra, do you mind just with it to my water? Oh, yeah. Would you be able to fill it up?
Oh, sure.
Thanks. I'll be drinking my water before 7:30 p.m. today. So we're going to start with a big jar right there. Oh, looks like Siri's listening. Okay, it's off now. How's everybody doing today? Good? Good days? Yes? No bad days? So? Awesome. Let's see if we can get this on the screen. I don't have a BLC available on my... Oh, there it is. Oh, that's a lot of water. Okay. I guess I should have specified an amount. Thank you. Probably won't get through that, but great. As I had said, I just want to remind everyone to, I guess, register or write down your name or whoever's checking to see who's coming every night. I'm not sure who's in charge of that, but did everybody check with somebody at the front? So that we know that you've been attending and everyone who's attended. You didn't sign in, Henry? I know that you've been here every night, Henry, but I might not be the one who's actually doing this. So I recommend that you sign in. So at the end of the conference, then everybody who's been here every night will receive a free copy of my book, Authentic You, The Step-by-Step Journey to the Habits Beyond Dieting. It is a 10-week program towards health transformation, and the Better Living Center will be ordering it for you on Amazon and giving it out for free to you. So please make sure that you sign in when you come in every day. All right, let's get started with a question. My question is this: how many people here have made lifestyle changes based on what you've heard between day one, which was Sunday, and today, which is Thursday? Oh, big round of applause for you guys. Well, clap for yourselves. Very good. Excellent. Way to go. So today we're talking about weight loss. So yesterday and today we're talking about weight loss and psychological changes to weight loss. I said that would be today, but we touched on it yesterday. And today we've moved more into tools and techniques. But when I started yesterday, I said that there were 3 basic steps, in my clinical opinion and based on my experience, 3 basic steps towards losing weight and never gaining it again. Step number 1 was examining your psychology. And part of step number 1 was lifestyle. Examine your current lifestyle. Examine your psychology. Am I eating out of emotional needs, as we talked about yesterday? Am I a stress eater? What is it that's behind my eating? Is there more behind my eating than I'm just eating out of nutritional needs or hunger? So that's step number 1. That gives you the opportunity to address those issues. As I'd said a few days ago, I think on the very, very first beginning, I said that I had listened to a podcast by an author of a book called The Magic Pill, and which came out probably about a year ago or so. And in that book, he went around the world interviewing doctors about the new drug. In some countries, it's a weight loss drug. In Canada, it is a diabetic drug, Ozempic. In the States, as a matter of fact, I was in the States in February, and that class of drugs, semaglutide, is available anywhere. I went somewhere with my cousins who live there to get an eyebrow wax. And so we went into a small little shop to get an eyebrow wax, and they were offering semaglutide injections. You can get your eyebrow waxed and get something similar to Ozempic all at the same time. That's how kind of ubiquitous it is in some countries, not so much in Canada. So in Canada, it's still prescribed for diabetes. But the reason why I'm talking about this was what that author found through his investigation was that a lot of people, when they are losing that desire to eat or they're controlling their appetite, a lot of people actually ended up feeling quite depressed. And it just revealed, yes, it could possibly be the way that that drug works on different receptors in the brain, but some of it could be just the realization that often food is used as a crutch. I don't like that word as much. A coping tool. Maybe coping mechanism is better. And then without that coping mechanism, people are left with their issues or addressing things that are a little bit deeper. So I'd said originally we would look at psychological reasons for weight loss and weight gain, but we talked more about it yesterday. And I mentioned a lot of the questions by Dr. Gabor Mate, who is, I guess, an expert, worldwide expert in addictions, who really, as a teenager and adult, spent a lot of time on the West Coast in British Columbia, especially in Vancouver. So today we're moving on to tools and techniques. I just say that to encourage you not to jump straight to tools and techniques. You want to start with those psychological questions. Start with asking yourself, am I an emotional eater? Am I a stress eater? Is food a coping mechanism for me? Okay, if it is, what's underneath that? Are there issues that are unaddressed? And I've been using food to kind of stuff those things down. The second step, which I introduced yesterday, step 2 was remove blocks. So what are the blockages that are making it difficult for you to lose weight in your life? One of them is just having the naughty no foods, we could say, in the house. So clear out your pantry. Make that easier for yourself so you don't see it all the time. You're not thinking about it all the time. It's not in your house. Another block might be you want to exercise, but you're not at a gym, or you don't have good exercise equipment, or you don't have great shoes, or you finish work and you go home, then you just feel too tired to go out again. So that's a block. So you go straight to exercising from work. Excellent time to exercise because it de-stresses you. Great way to finish the day with a walk or working out. You leave all the stress on the pavement, or you leave all the stress on the treadmill. then go home. It's so much harder to go home and then try to go out again. Yes, go ahead. Tim? There is. There are a few reasons why exercising in the morning is a little bit better. But if you can't do it in the morning, much better to do it after work. I like after work because most people have a little more time then, and at least you get the stress relief benefit. I can say the worst time to exercise is before bed, because before bed, your cortisol level goes up, adrenaline goes up, and then you don't want to go to sleep. And then it puts off your bedtime. And we already talked all about sleep. But according to our circadian rhythm, testosterone is a little bit higher in the morning. So therefore, you're going to feel a little more powerful in the morning, maybe a little more motivated in the morning. A lot of people, after they get up and they start moving around, etc. Even people who say, I would say in general, I'm not a morning person. After they get up, they start moving around, they feel like they have more energy later in the day. Testosterone in general, unless you're taking an injection, but naturally testosterone is lower later in the afternoon. And this is also one of the reasons why people start feeling a little less tired or less motivated, less powerful, let's say, later in the afternoon. So morning would be the best time based on testosterone levels and circadian levels. They've also done studies on exercising in the morning and the way it affects sleep at night. So the second bonus of exercising in the morning, and this is early, this is like shortly within an hour of waking up, is when you exercise in the morning, cortisol levels start to go high. I call cortisol the stress hormone, but it's also secreted initially when you exercise. This actually sets the rhythm of cortisol for the entire day if you exercise within the first hour of waking up. So testosterone's going higher, cortisol is set, so cortisol starts going up, so you have more alertness. Then it goes down a little bit naturally. Then it's going to go up in the afternoon at the time where everybody else is having that like 3:30 or 4 p.m. sluggish kind of feeling. You aren't, because cortisol is going up then. And then it starts coming down, maybe 7-ish, starts coming down, and then you can go into a nice sleep. For people who are exercising at night, cortisol is going up when it's supposed to come down, and they end up sleeping later, usually. For all those reasons, so that was an excellent question. These are the reasons why exercising within an hour of waking up most likely is the best time. But as I said, if that doesn't work with your schedule, then the best time is when you can, except not before bed. With those studies, they did, the study I was referring to is the Appalachian University sleep study, where they exercised within the first hour of waking up. They didn't exercise for an hour and a half, and it wasn't particularly rigorous. It was like maybe 15 minutes. And they were doing kind of old-fashioned calisthenics. They're doing squats, lunges, burpees, jumping jacks, planks, like just some basic resistant exercises, 15 minutes. That was it. But they did it within an hour of waking up. So, yes, exercising earlier might be better. But if you can't, then do it when you can. But I don't recommend exercising at night. So we're moving on to tool number 3. Tool number 2 was blockages. And you had to examine your own life and say, what are the things that are blocking me from losing weight? I've had patients who have said, the thing that's blocking me is I want to eat this way. It might be a man saying, I want to eat this way, but my wife wants to eat this way. Or vice versa. A wife saying, I want to eat this way, but my husband or partner wants to eat this way. So it becomes tough if you're trying to make 2 meals. So much better if you're just making one style of meal for the whole house. If that's a block for you, I can't say I have the answer. But maybe within your own relationship, you have the answer. It's so nice when people support each other. I do have one answer, actually, that came to my mind because I had a patient, one of the first patients that I had who lost between 80 and 100 pounds, not the patient who was 400 pounds, but she did so well, and she insisted on the tool of drinking water before your meal. And she kind of chose things she felt like, I can choose a few no matter what's. And there's some things I just know I'm not going to stick to and I might not get to. But one of her no matter what's was drinking the water before the meal. And the other no matter what was she stuck 100% to the meal plan that I sent her, which was a big bonus. But her husband didn't want to eat the food that was on the meal plan, and he was the person who was cooking. So that was a challenge. So they came up with a compromise. The compromise was he would make the meal, which was on the meal plan, and then he would add whatever else he wanted to add to it. So she would eat the basic meal, and he would have the meal plus whatever other things he added on the side for himself. And that was a pretty good compromise. At least their two plates weren't the exact opposite. So that might be helpful as well. Step number 2 was remove the blockages that make it difficult for you to lose weight. Some of them might even be mental blockages. We'll talk about that today. Step number 3, tools and techniques. So you may have heard this fallacy. I have a slow metabolism, and slow metabolism causes weight gain and excess fat. And the truth, according to Dr. William Li, is the exact opposite. Excess adipose tissue, meaning having more fat on your body, is what slows down your metabolism. And then it's a little bit like a cycle. And then when your metabolism's slower, then it's harder to lose the fat. But it's the extra fat that's slowing down your metabolism. So once you start losing that fat, then your metabolism would then speed up. Once you start gaining more muscle, your metabolism or your basal metabolic rate would also speed up. So when you burn the fat, meaning lose the weight, your metabolism goes up. According to Dr. William Li, you unleash your inner metabolism. So the focus would be on taking that first step of weight loss or fat loss. There are 4 natural phases of metabolism without excess fat based on 2021. I'm saying this because the argument often is, I'm older, my metabolism has slowed down, and that's why it's difficult for me to lose weight. But you might be surprised at when your metabolism really slows down if you're not overweight and you don't have excess fat on your body, because the excess fat can slow your metabolism down. 4 natural phases of metabolism based on a study done in 2021. We have a phase of metabolism from 0 to 1 years old, where everything's growing, changing, etc. From 1 to 20 years old, including our teens, metabolism is similar. This is a surprising thing. Between 20 and 60 years old, okay, maybe you have excess fat more than you did when you were 20. The exact opposite for me, because I do have a picture of myself near to that age, and I definitely had more fat at that time. But for a lot of people, when they were younger, they had less fat, and then as they're growing older, they might be gaining weight. But the interesting thing is this is the 3rd stage of metabolism. So your metabolism doesn't really start slowing down, let's say, until after the age of 60. And then you're in the next stage, 60 to 90 years old. That's when your metabolism is a little bit slower. So if you're under the age of 60, then it is possible, without the extra fat, to have a metabolism that's just as fast as it was when you were 20 or 21 years old. As I said, this study was based on metabolism studies without people who were overweight or had extra adipose tissue, because according to Dr. William Li, adipose tissue is the thing that slows down your metabolism. So this is kind of like our natural stages of metabolism change. 20 to 60 years old. Over 60, yes, it's going to slow down a little bit. All right, let's talk a little bit about some of the tools or techniques that I've talked about. I just mentioned this idea of of the water. This patient who, no matter what, for her, that was kind of like a bright line, you could say. No matter what, she committed to the water. I'm going to drink water 15 minutes. And for her, we started with the discussion of 1 hour before your meal. It wasn't happening. 30 minutes before the meal, still not happening. We got down to 15 to 20 minutes before the meal. She said, I know I can do that. And she kept doing it for months, like 6 months. And then she was no longer my patient after that. We did talk about the order in which you eat. Yes, go ahead. What's in my water? It's 100% freshly squeezed lemon. It is far too heavy, though, for me to easily pick it up without spilling it all over myself at the moment. It's just lemon, and I like to put some pulp in. Some lemon pulp. Yeah, some of the, yeah, but nothing else, just water and lemon. Yes. Sipping it slowly, but not so slow. Thank you so much. Sipping it, usually if you drink water just guzzling it down, then pretty soon after that you have to go to the bathroom. Hence the 30 minutes before. So what she was doing sometimes was she was just going whoosh, and I recommend 2 cups, so that's 500 milliliters of water, but give yourself a little more time. So it's kind of this balance between sipping occasionally, that's too slow, and not guzzling all at once. Pay attention to the order in which you eat your food, which we talked about a few days ago. So I think the first day or second day we had a few things on the plate. There were leafy greens, there was tofu, there was rice, there might have been bread. And thank you very much. And you know what? It was so delicious. I didn't eat after 6:30 that day. I had it for breakfast. So it was tofu, curry tofu for breakfast. Quite lovely. I didn't wait until 10:30 though. It's just too hungry. So to repeat, you had leafy greens, tofu and chickpeas, rice, and bread. And I said that you could eat in a particular order that helps with sugar regulation. And in that way, you never get an insulin spike and your body's not holding on to the fat. What would the first thing that you eat be? Leafy greens. Next? The curry what? The tofu and chickpeas. Right. So the protein next. I'd probably eat the tofu and then the chickpeas. Next. I mean, there are only 2 things left. But let's see. What do you think? The rice is next, and after the rice? The bread. You left the bread. All right. You know, I noticed when I was living in Asia, when I moved to Asia, well, before that time I'd lost weight, but when I moved to Asia, I lost a lot of weight. Just the eating was different. I remember going to a TGIF restaurant. TG is Friday, and they had a huge sign outside, like a placard. We serve American-sized portions. And the plates were huge. And when we got there, we were getting free garlic bread. I wasn't plant-based at the time. And I was like, amazing. So I'm eating all this bread. And then when your plate came, there was bread on the table. And I looked over. This was in Taiwan. And across from me, I saw a Taiwanese family, and they just left all the bread. And I was like, you're missing out on the best part of the meal. And I started observing, okay, why people were very slender there, and a lot of the foreigners or people who were there working weren't slender, and I was sitting in the TGIFs, and I thought, wow, people here eat differently. They left the bread, they ate the vegetables and everything else that came, and I thought, oh, I'm going to try that. I'm going to leave the bread. Even though it was free, and you got free refills, and I was like, but I want to eat all that garlic bread. But you pay a price later. So yes, so you would eat the leafy greens first, the tofu next, the chickpeas after that. The tofu is a little higher in protein than the chickpeas, and then the rice, and then the bread at the very end. So, what are some tips towards weight loss? Pay attention to the order in which you eat your food. Next, I have preloading up. Pardon me? Yes, not the best. I mean, some people mix it all together. You mean so it's a giant pile of stuff? But if you change it a little bit to the eating order, then you're getting the benefits of keeping your sugar regulated and over time without as many insulin spikes, which can help you lose weight or lose fat. Of course, it's a different taste because some people like mixing everything together and they get this taste of everything. So the choice is yours, but you have the information. Preloading. Preloading means that you start with something and it's starting to fill the stomach up a little bit, and then you go to your main meal. I like to use preloading with water, so that's what that patient was doing. Preloading with 2 cups of water, 15 to 30 minutes before her meal, and then eating her meal. So those stretch receptors that we talked about yesterday, that they would detect the stretch of the stomach, send that message to the brain. The brain would then cause leptin to be secreted from the fat cell sooner, and they'd feel satiated or satiety faster, and then they're not eating as much. So that whole process, you can kind of give it a little bit of a push, or you might say a little bit of a premature start, but start it early with a preload of water, or you can preload with vegetables, a large apple, or preload with water. I like the idea of water because it also guarantees that you're hydrating. A lot of people find it difficult to drink 2 liters or 2.5 liters, or maybe if you're a guy, 3 liters of water per day. This way you're hydrating, you're drinking, let's say your water amount, aspired water amount per day, and you're helping yourself, or you're using water to lose weight. So it's a combination. And if I can find something that does 2 or 3 or 4 things all in one, then I'll go for that instead. You can preload with vegetables. I said always eat the vegetables first. You could eat a large apple first and then eat your meal. That would be a Granny Smith apple to help with blood sugar regulation. But if you preload with water, at least okay, if I preload with water before every meal, and I'm drinking 500 milliliters of water before every meal, and I'm only eating 3 meals a day, I've already taken care of 1.5 liters of water per day without having to train myself to keep thinking about the water. Yes, the idea of starting with a salad is exactly right. I don't really eat out at a lot of restaurants anymore, but when I was younger, meaning living at home, so it was a treat to go to a restaurant. And when we went to the restaurant, they'd say, would you like to start with soup or salad? And at that time, I just really wanted to get to whatever the meal was, fish and chips or something of that kind, though I did like Reuben sandwiches. And I thought, no, let's skip the soup and salad. Let's just bring the real food. So when I thought of it, I thought, you know what? The idea of starting with soup or salad is exactly right. That's like preloading with something that's healthy. So yes, starting with soup or salad is a form of preloading. At TGIFs, they preloaded with garlic bread. Not the best step. Vegetable soup would work in the same way as a salad or as water, but this way with the water, you're getting that benefit of hydration. 2 cups of water before each meal will work in the same way. Take this 30 minutes before each meal equals weight loss, practically guaranteed. I can never say that something is guaranteed to work, and hence practically is an important word there. If you can't make it 30 minutes before the meal, 20 minutes. There was a study that was done on overweight or obese men and women. They drank 2 cups of water before each meal. They lost nearly 5 pounds more body fat than those who did not drink the water before their meals. So 2 cups of water before your meal, for most people, is something manageable that they can do. And the meal kind of acts as a hook. And I'll tell you what that means, what a hook means in terms of neural networking. So today we're going to talk a little bit about neuroscience as well when we're talking about weight loss. Overall tips for weight loss. Some of these we've already talked about. Number 1, chew your food thoroughly. Eat slowly. Allow that signal, as I said yesterday, to go to the brain, and then you'll taste the food more and you get more enjoyment. The more you enjoy your food, the more dopamine is secreted. The more you enjoy your food, the more dopamine that's going to be secreted. When a lot of dopamine is secreted, then you get the urge to do it again, and then it becomes easier and easier. Of course, there are habits that we could have where a lot of dopamine is being secreted. Those are the habits that work against you: chocolate, chips, gambling, drugs, etc. So dopamine is just a matter of how pleasurable something is for you. It's not whether it's good or bad. So make dopamine work for you so it's easier. How do you make it work for you? By enjoying what you're doing. Don't just grin and bear it. Number 2, which we've already talked about, don't eat until you're full. Instead, eat until your stomach is filling or filling up. Fill your stomach up with healthy food choices that you enjoy. Meaning, and this also means stop eating when you're 2/3 full, which is found in all of the blue zones across the world, the areas where people live the longest, past 100. They eat until they're 2/3 or 80% full. Number 3, preload. I said that you could preload with water. You can preload with vegetables. Eat a salad first before you eat your meal. I wouldn't concern myself as much with how many calories exactly, or you can drink water first. As it said in that study, they lost more fat by drinking the water first, 30 minutes before their meal. Number 4 is according to Dr. Michael Greger, add the daily weight loss spices to your routine. According to studies, there are certain spices that help with weight loss, and we're going to talk about what those weight loss spices are. I like to take those spices and create a tea with them. So I put those spices in a cup, I add some hot water, and that's what I'm sipping through the day. I've found this to be very effective with my weight loss patients. Between meals, let's say 2 hours after their meal, they're sipping this spicy tea. And then they're not hungry, and then they have their next meal 2 hours after, they're sipping the spicy tea. You can change the contents a little bit depending on whether you have diabetes or you don't have diabetes, but these spices are according to studies that have been researched by Dr. Michael Greger, so these aren't my studies. According to Dr. Michael Greger, 2 cups of cold water in an empty stomach a few times a day is helpful for weight loss, but never more than 3 cups in 1 hour. Some people are not comfortable drinking cold water on an empty stomach, and that, as we said earlier, is not what's advised in Chinese medicine. But basically, your body has to work harder to warm that water up. So just by making your body work harder, you're burning more calories, and that can lead to weight loss as well. I like going with the room temperature water, or first thing in the morning, going with warm water. As I said, permanent weight loss comes from permanent change. So the idea is perhaps you used to behave or act one way, and now when you're changing to behaving or acting the other way, in your mind you're not thinking, I'm only doing this temporarily. Instead, you're thinking, I'm on the road to a transformation, a metamorphosis, you could say. About to preach about metamorphosis, but I'm going from caterpillar to a butterfly. And once you're a butterfly, you can never go back to a caterpillar. So in your mind, you're thinking, this isn't temporary. These are steps towards permanent change. So perhaps before you were a little bit like this. How many people would rather eat than exercise? And a lot of people would put their hands up. Eating instead of exercising, and much easier. And this was me, so I'm making fun of myself. Pizza guy over here, as I said, I think I kept pizza in business. And you'll see the results of that when you see my picture, which I've left till the end. Personally, I myself also just watched the 20-minute workout when I was much younger instead of doing the 20-minute workout. Ooh, it feels so good when you watch it. But you have to actually do the exercise. But I just found the 20-minute workout amazing. I was laying on the couch the other day. I had the strongest urge to get up and go for a walk. So I waited until the urge passed. Perhaps these were ways of being prior to making the change. And sometimes people don't go from jumping right off the couch to I'm doing a 45-minute walk per day, but they might go to, you know what, I'm feeling maybe a little bit excited about exercising. I'm just going to start with a 15-minute walk. And that's how you go every day. I'm just starting with a 15-minute walk. I don't really feel like going, but I'm committed to a 15-minute walk. And before you know it, that 15-minute becomes 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and then it's a daily 45-minute walk. But these are just ways of being where you make that commitment, I'm making a change. I used to prefer to eat than exercise. Now I prefer to exercise, and I eat for health or nutrition or longevity or all, as opposed to for pleasure. So making that change, I would say part of making that change is also changing your mindset, changing your beliefs about what's possible and what's not possible. I'd had a patient who came to me for weight loss, and this was one of the first things she told me, that she was like basically hiring me for a program to create a personalized program for her. But the first thing she told me is, oh, by the way, I've tried it all, nothing works for me. I said, okay, right off the bat, I know we're in trouble. Because she didn't believe it's possible. If that's her belief, I've tried everything, nothing works for me, we're already going on an uphill battle. And is it possible that everybody has tried everything? No. Maybe you've tried 5 or 6 things and things haven't worked for you, but there's always more. But if the belief is this second part, nothing works for me, then it's going to be tough. So changing that belief, you know what, it's possible. Maybe there's still something that will work for me. Maybe there's something I don't know. So your body will respond and come into alignment with what you're thinking. How are your affirmations going? I had made a suggestion. Did you reward yourself at the end of the week? This is more of a please reward yourself at the end of the week. I had mentioned yesterday about a patient in affirmations. So with that patient, I said that she believed that going past 200 was impossible for her. And I gave her that affirmation. Somebody over here was talking a little bit, it might have been Serge who was talking a little bit about beliefs and what you say to yourself yesterday. I gave her the affirmation, I'm naturally under 200 pounds. I'm naturally under 200 pounds. I'm naturally under, I will rewatch the tape, Serge. I'm naturally under 200 pounds. And just saying that affirmation, trying to change that belief, that thought process. And when she really clicked into that, I'm naturally under 200 pounds. She said it every day, many times per day. She lost the weight. Before that, she went under 200 pounds. Before that, as soon as she got to 200, she'd go up. Oh, 202. Close to 200, 203. It was just, I could see there's some kind of belief, something here that's stopping the progress beyond, not following the meal plan. And she was doing everything but. So I said, okay, let's go for changing that belief. And then we went to, I'm naturally under 190 pounds. This is the patient who I said today is about 175 pounds, because after 190, I'm naturally under 180 pounds. And I said, why don't we just pick a number? And I naturally weigh this number. But we had to work towards that. But her thinking came into alignment with what she was doing, which came into alignment with her body and how it was working. So I would say your beliefs make a big difference. Did anybody write down an affirmation after I told that story yesterday for themselves? Okay. I'm calm. Excellent. All right. Good. Anybody else? So I would give this to you as a suggestion. Think of something that you feel is a barrier to you. It might be an emotional barrier, a psychological barrier, something you've struggled with, and come up with an affirmation. I'm calm. I naturally weigh 175 pounds. That was the affirmation that we came to. But we had to work to, okay, what's the blockage? I'm naturally under this weight. Instead of, I've tried everything, nothing works for me, for that patient, I changed it to, it's possible. Things do work for me. And she really started losing a lot of weight. But then her saying became, this always happens. I lose weight fast, but then I gain it all back. And I was like, no. And she did. But I would suggest, think of an affirmation that it kind of feels like it sits right with you, and start saying it every day. Finally, at the end of this week, at the beginning, I asked how many people from the beginning of this week until now have implemented some change. And I'd say at least, yeah, we had at least about 60% of people put their hands up, which is amazing. And I would suggest that you reward yourself at the end of the week, which is tomorrow. What are the things you can reward yourself with? I might not remember to ask, did you reward yourself at the end of the week? You can reward yourself with other things besides food. So often people reward themselves with food, but you could reward yourself with calling a friend, a new pair of shoes, okay, socks, okay. If you're getting the socks, make sure they're 100% cotton so that your feet breathe. A new pair of shoes, that's kind of expensive. A new jacket, a bubble bath, ooh, with a little bit of lavender in it. Whatever a treat is going to be for you, reward yourself, because then you're causing more dopamine to be secreted. It's going to make it easier to continue whatever that new habit is. We talked a little bit about this yesterday. It was intermittent fasting. What is happening during intermittent fasting? There's a large clock there because we want to talk about the times for intermittent fasting. I think the time that we're eating here, and we will be eating soon, I think in 7 minutes or so. So I think the times that we are eating here are kind of perfect because they go in line with the intermittent fasting ideas that we talked about yesterday, which would mean that you're eating dinner around 6 o'clock. So that's why we decided that we'd be eating dinner around or so 6 o'clock every night. You're finished eating dinner around 6:30, maybe no later than 6:45. And after that, with intermittent fasting, you don't eat again. No snacking, nothing. You might have an herbal tea, but you don't drink that herbal tea. I'm going to go over here. You don't drink that herbal tea anytime after 7 p.m. The next morning, you have your first meal at about 10 or 10:30. Does that sound doable to everybody? Why not? Okay. To be spoken about after. So you finish eating at about 6:30, 6:45. You begin at about 10:30. So you're working with a 16-hour fasting window, an 8-hour eating window. So your 8-hour eating window is between 10:30 and 6 or so. Yes, go ahead. Does not break the fast. With anything fatty or sugary would break the fast. Though I'm not a huge... Or you could just not drink the coffee at all. And you could opt for something like herbal tea. But yes, a delicious herbal tea. But yeah, as soon as you add like the cream to it or sugar to it, then you're raising insulin levels, and that would break the fast. So that was one of the things we talked about yesterday, the intermittent fasting. Some other tools and techniques, so that's what we're talking about tonight. Basic weight loss principles, add the spices. So this is not based on my research. This is based on the research of Dr. Michael Greger. And this is a compilation of different spices that, according to studies, have been found to help with weight loss. So here are your weight loss spices. As I said, you can make them into a tea. You can put them in your smoothie. Usually when people hear tea and garlic together, they don't smile very much, but you could. Garlic, half a teaspoon, and this is of garlic juice per day in studies, equaled weight loss and particularly a loss of body fat. Next, black cumin. A lot of people have heard of cumin, but not black cumin. It's a little less common, but I think it's more potent. So 1/4 teaspoon of black cumin per day in studies was found to reduce blood pressure and reduce cholesterol. Black cumin. More, you can still get a similar effect, but you'd need more like maybe a half a teaspoon or a teaspoon, which is what is right there. Okay, half a teaspoon. If you prefer the taste of regular cumin, or if it's just more accessible, then you would just use more, a half teaspoon per day instead of a 1/4 teaspoon. Cayenne pepper. How much cayenne pepper in studies, I'm not sure, but I wouldn't go beyond about half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Some people love it because it has quite a kick. Cayenne pepper also reduces the viscosity of your blood, meaning it thins your blood. So I'd be careful if you're on blood thinners with using cayenne pepper, especially if you're using it every day, along with turmeric, along with garlic. Ground ginger, 1/4 teaspoon of ground ginger per day. So those are the weight loss spices according to studies. Garlic, black cumin or regular cumin, cayenne pepper, ground ginger. The really amazing thing is each one of these is also a natural anti-inflammatory. So as you're having these spices per day, you're also creating, if you have it in a tea, it's a natural anti-inflammatory tea. And I would say if you don't like the taste of the garlic, you could take that out, and maybe people might enjoy the taste of the ginger, the cayenne pepper, the cumin, a little bit of hot water, and you could have that as a tea every day and take the garlic raw separately. Do the garlic plus Manuka honey that we talked about yesterday, or you could take a garlic supplement. Something to eliminate from your diet. Let's see. We've already talked about it. Yes? Yes. That'd be okay as long as you're kind of damaging the garlic. And then that starts that whole process of allin being converted into allicin through the enzyme allinase. So, yeah. Don't use powdered. And then, sorry, did you say swallow it or chew it? Okay. Oh, okay. Sure. So you're not chewing it in your mouth and then swallowing it. You're just trying to swallow chunks of it. Okay. Yeah. As long as you've already damaged the garlic, maybe by crushing it, then that would be fine. Yes. Yeah. I really don't think freezing the garlic affects the enzymes in it, so that would be okay. Yeah. Right. So we talked about that a little bit yesterday. Once the garlic is heated, then it burns off that enzyme, the allinase, so that conversion to allicin doesn't happen. So it has to be raw. The roasted tastes great, but yes. Step towards weight loss is going to seem very obvious, and we've already talked about the first and second steps. So what do you think the first step towards weight loss is? Aside from, making up your mind, mindset, decision making, changing your beliefs. Okay, what is it that you're doing? Following what you planned, which is what? What is in the plan? What are you eating? I'm trying to get down to a very solid, like either something you remove or something you put in. Get rid of the garbage. Okay. Okay, now. Excellent. Okay, first 2 steps. Because it's easier often to take, mentally not easier, but start by taking things out, then you put things in. Take out the bad, put in the good. Just that basic principle. The bad would be ultra-processed foods. So the big 2 things, remove ultra-processed foods from your diet. Second thing, I think, Kristen, you said sugar. Remove sugar from your diet. So this might be very obvious sugar, like literally packets of sugar. Remove baked goods, sugary things, except ice cream, all of those sugary things from your diet. Something that's cooked with white sugar, white flour from your diet. But I'd say the first 2 steps, ultra-processed foods and then sugar. So it's time, whoop, did you see that? Time to just let it go. It comes, it goes. Don't trap the sugar and use it. So removing ultra-processed foods, removing sugar. We're talking about many other things, but I think those are 2 excellent steps. After you change your belief system, instead of thinking nothing works for me, it is possible to make some changes. Things do work for me. My body responds. And whatever other affirmations you're writing down for yourself. Another basic weight loss principle, how to blunt the sugar cravings. Okay, now you've removed the sugar from your diet, but you're still getting sugar cravings. A few of the reasons why people have sugar cravings, one of them is stress, which we've already talked about, because stress increases cortisol. Cortisol increases appetite, and it also increases ghrelin. So before you know it, you're having these cravings based on stress, emotional situations, etc. But you've decided, I want to remove ultra-processed foods, I want to remove sugar, but I'm getting these cravings. The other thing that causes sugar cravings is not getting enough sleep. Not getting enough sleep the night before, the next day, cortisol's high, you're getting cravings, and you have a higher appetite. So there you are. You're in this situation where you didn't get enough sleep, your stress is higher that day, maybe you didn't get to exercise in the morning, so cortisol is not regulated, and you've got a sugar craving. And what do? Aside from, but you've decided you're decreasing or cutting out sugar, you can do this. You could definitely drink water. There are a few things that are a little more effective. You could eat a Granny Smith green apple. I actually did this experiment with a friend at university. When I went to seminary, I had a friend who was about to make a poor food choice. And she's like, oh, my craving, I have a craving, it's so strong. I was in her dorm room. I said, I promise you, if you just eat this apple, just humor me. Eat the apple, the craving will go away. Of course, when you're having a sugar craving, you don't want to eat an apple. But we did an experiment. I said, within 1 minute of finishing this apple, you're not going to want what you wanted. At least she was open. I mean, if you're dead set on whatever it is, you might have it anyway, even though the craving's gone. She ate the apple. Within 1 minute of finishing the apple, she didn't want the ultra-processed food, the sugary foods anymore. Pretty amazing. So what will blunt a sugar craving? You can start with a Granny Smith apple. It has to be something sour. So sugar is sweet. You're going for something the opposite. You're eating something sour. And that's the end of the sugar craving. Other options, as I gave that example of the patient who who was in the kitchen, and she put her hand on the fridge door and she was going for the cake that was inside. Yes, she still ate it, but that was based on something emotional. So she had a sugar craving based on something emotional, having an argument with her husband. Option number 2, go and exercise, which is what she does now. So blunt your sugar craving by pumping your body with serotonin, endorphins, and dopamine. Once your body's starting to be flooded with that, your sugar craving is finished. So exercise. So you want to choose something sour, even though you have a craving for something sweet. You want to go and exercise, then your body's going to be full of bliss hormones, and the sugar craving is going to be gone. Next, you might choose something like spinach powder or eating half a cup of spinach per day. And in studies, having half a cup of spinach per day or spinach powder decreased cravings for sweets. So you're choosing spinach, or you're increasing fiber. Fiber intake feeds the gut bacteria, decreases your appetite to the point of affecting it even the next day. Yes. We mentioned it the other day. If you have something like kidney stones, then you might be at risk for just a higher oxalic acid or oxalates, which then can kind of crystallize and add to a kidney stone. But you could continue drinking a lot of water and maybe not have spinach every day, but every few days, and that would be okay. Yes. Yeah. The dirty dozen and the clean 15. Right. So as I said yesterday, when it comes to food choices, there are certain foods where it's much better to buy them organic. And then some foods where you think, just in terms of finances, I'm okay with buying these things non-organic. Spinach, strawberries, just really absorb what's in the soil, so they tend to be very high in pesticides unless you get organic. Micah, did you have a question? That's part of it. So a lot of the cravings that we have, some of them are mental, some of them are the microbiome, some of them are yeast species that might be in our body, like an overgrowth of candida can cause, because candida feeds on sugar, that can drive a sugar craving as well. So that's why I think part of the reason why increasing fiber, which is the next point there, is important, because it's going to feed the gut bacteria. And then once the gut bacteria is fed, then you're not getting that craving. And then the fiber, as we said a few days ago, if you're increasing fiber, make sure you increase water, or you're just setting yourself up probably for constipation. So fiber intake feeds the gut bacteria, which reminds me of a slide. I wanted to put a list of prebiotic foods, because the list I showed the other day was probiotic foods. But that will have to be tomorrow. Right, so feeding the gut bacteria with fiber, making sure that you increase your water, it's going to decrease your appetite to the point where apparently, according to studies, it lasts even to the next day. Lentils, beans, chickpeas. And this might be one of the reasons why at the University of Toronto, with that study where they were trying to see, is it possible to target fat loss from the waist? They found that increasing fiber, particularly they were eating navy beans, actually rendered a weight loss nearly 2 inches in the waist. And of course, cravings are decreasing as well. Right now, you might have a craving for the soup in front of you, so let's start by saying a prayer. Dear Lord, Jesus, we thank you so much for your provision, just that we can be here today, that we're here in a sound mind, and we thank you for the hands that have prepared this food, for providing us with this food. We ask that it'll be blessed and be good for our bodies. We say things in Jesus' name, amen. Enjoy the food. And remember, we want to start by eating in a very relaxed state. And don't eat the bread first. Okay. As you smell your food, this hormone might be being secreted right now, which is ghrelin. And ghrelin is a hormone that's responsible for triggering and signaling hunger to the brain, stimulating appetite, and increasing our food intake. So the more you smell this delicious soup, as I am standing up here right now, the more ghrelin that's being secreted, the hungrier you get. It can also be secreted based on smell, so don't smell for pleasure. And I think everybody has experienced this, probably. We remember smells, and then we desire what we remember. If we sat for long enough with our eyes closed and thought of the smell, for me it's the delicious pain au chocolat, which is like a chocolate croissant. When I lived in Paris a long time, and I used to go to the bakery and just smell. And then I actually gained like 12 pounds there. But the pain au chocolat just smelled so good, and before I knew it, I was hungry. But we can remember smells. You could just sit and remember the smell of a delicious meal or fresh croissant, and then you'd want it. So be careful with what you're smelling. Right now, as you're eating, yes, smell the food, enjoy the food. So the question would be, is there something you can smell that's going to cut off ghrelin so that you're not as hungry? Did you know that just smelling grapefruit affects you? It affects fat metabolism. It affects appetite. Smelling grapefruit enhances lipolysis. Lipolysis is the breakdown of fat, and it reduces appetite and reduces body weight as well. So, and they've also done studies on, I don't have it here, studies on smelling peppermint. So smelling peppermint can also decrease ghrelin, and that decreases appetite. So initially when I found this out with some of my weight loss patients, I suggested that they carry peppermint essential oil, and to blunt cravings, every once in a while, they smell the peppermint essential oil. Moving on to talking a little more about ghrelin. Oh, the grapefruit and peppermint oil. So you want to smell grapefruit, smell peppermint oil. Or you could even get grapefruit essential oil. That's an interesting smell. Chia seeds may decrease the level of ghrelin as well. This is one of the reasons why chia seeds are part of the breakfast that I recommend. The other wonderful thing about chia is high in fiber, and it's also high in protein. So you'll feel less hungry. Chia seeds are also full of protein and healthy fats and fiber. A great combination of protein, healthy fat, and fiber. This combination helps you to feel full and satisfied for longer. So when, like this little mouse, you say, I need food, then you might opt for some chia pudding. The other thing I love about chia for people who wake up early in the morning and have to get up and go to work right away and don't have a lot of time, you can make chia the night before. You just add some, it might be chia seeds plus almond milk. Put it in the fridge. It's going to get nice and plump and turn into a whole pudding. When you take it out the next morning, there it is. So you're only taking a few minutes in the morning. You take it and put your blueberries on top, maybe your walnuts if you're not allergic, and then that's what you eat. So you don't have to take a lot of time making it. Let it start plumping up and becoming a little more viscous overnight in the fridge. Studies in 2015 found that by eating 30 grams of fiber per day, it actually resulted in weight loss, lower blood pressure, and increased insulin sensitivity. Once insulin sensitivity goes up, risk of type 2 diabetes goes down. So including chia seeds in your diet. And one of the reasons why I put chia here, aside from the fact that it's a healthy fiber, that it has protein in it, is because part of the way that chia works, at least for weight loss, is it cuts off ghrelin. So you're not as hungry. And that's probably, no, one moment. Okay, I still haven't figured out how to make that not happen every night. Yes. So one of the reasons why people find it difficult to lose weight sometimes is basically hunger. So when you're eating the right foods at the right times, then hunger goes down and you're not as, and then that kind of opens it up for you to lose some weight. Looking at flax seeds as promised. Flax seeds, I know. Flax seeds, finally. They're beneficial when sprouted or ground into flax meal. You can also buy this. I don't recommend eating whole flax seeds. Instead, if you have something like a coffee grinder, you can put the flax seeds in the coffee grinder, grind it up, and you have some nice fresh flax. Grinding them ahead of time helps with the absorption of the flax seeds as it's finer. Whole flax seeds tend to pass right through, if you know what I mean. We'll have no toilet talk during dinner time. But you want it every day. It's like right when the dinner is served. That's when the slides come. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Which is what I recommend, grinding it in the coffee grinder and then having it right at that time. Also, one of the reasons why it's recommended that you grind them, the idea of them passing right through, is also if you happen to have diverticulosis or you have pockets in your large intestine, then they might get caught. So grinding them initially and then eating them is better. Flax seeds, they are easily digested. They're a source of healthy fats. They're high in fiber, but they're low in carbs. Doesn't that sound good? High in fiber, low in carbs. And this way, when you're eating flax seeds, I also recommend putting the flax on the chia, because you might as well combine those two things and get the most benefit. Then you get other benefits as well. Studies show that flax seeds can help balance female hormones. I have actually done some experimentation with flax and female hormones, especially during perimenopause. Helps to regulate blood pressure. Studies show that flax seeds can help to lower blood sugar. They help to lower triglycerides. They help to lower cholesterol. And they decrease hyperlipidemia. And I wish I'd put the link to the study there. Decreasing hyperlipidemia means decreasing the amount of fat that is found in the blood. So it could be decreasing triglyceride levels. The fiber traps fat, traps cholesterol, and accompanies it out the back door. So you want the flax and the fiber in the flax to work for you. A great idea. I had mentioned steel cut oats because they're high in beta glucans. Eating those so it traps cholesterol. Adding flax as well so it can trap the cholesterol. Very important that you have regular bowel movements. So it is going out the back door and not that waste isn't getting stuck in the bowels. Studies show that flax improves obesity and supports weight loss. So if weight loss is your goal, you could combine these two things, the chia pudding, and then you're getting the protein, the fiber, and also the satisfaction, and the flaxseed, and then you're getting something that's going to lower your blood sugar and trap fat and cholesterol. And after you have the chia pudding with the flax on top, you're not hungry anymore. Yes, and you've gotten a very high nutrition breakfast. Go ahead. It's an option. It's much faster to grind the seeds up, but you can sprout flax. Actually, that's not something I thought of putting on here. How to sprout. but maybe I'll ask, and we could talk about it tomorrow. Is anybody here interested in hearing about sprouting or how to sprout? Okay, maybe I'll include a slide or two for tomorrow, how to sprout, and then those sprouts are things that you can include in your daily smoothie. You can put them on the chia pudding. Sprouts have a very distinct taste, so if you like the taste of green, microgreens kind of, then it's a great addition. I don't like the taste of sprouts that much, so I throw them in the smoothie, and then I get the benefit of the sprouts without tasting them. But you can put them on a salad as well. Very fresh tasting. Oatmeal. So oatmeal, as well, as I said, high in beta glucans. Therefore, it helps with trapping cholesterol in the large intestine and pulling the cholesterol out of the body when you have a bowel movement. So oatmeal helps you to feel fuller for longer. But not all oatmeal is the same. Quick oats do not act the same way as steel-cut oats. And quick steel-cut oats, you're not getting the benefit either. I always recommend the old-fashioned steel-cut oats that take 20 to 30 minutes to cook. Oatmeal is very high in fiber and protein with zero sugar. Oatmeal helps to lower the risk of heart disease and certain cancers, for example, colorectal cancer. The other thing I don't have there is that oatmeal, if you're eating the right oatmeal and having water as well, can help to lower cholesterol levels. It may also help to reduce blood pressure. So things to add: chia, fiber, oatmeal. Those are all great combinations for breakfast, and they're all fairly fast as well. If you're looking at foods and food combinations, and too bad Miko's not here, this is something we talked about the other day. Vitamin C increases the absorption of iron, basically. So what you can do to get more iron out of your broccoli or out of your spinach, or I just couldn't compete anymore, out of your broccoli or your spinach or your greens, is you want to squeeze some lemon juice. So squeeze some lemon juice over your broccoli to make the iron in the broccoli more readily absorbed. Other things that you can do for garlic and onion. Did you know that garlic and onions increase zinc absorption and iron absorption? So, and also makes everything taste great. In this case, you're not actually going for the allicin in the garlic. So you can cook with garlic, cook with onions, eat them at the same meal, and then you're getting more iron absorption. Let's say that you have garlic, onions, and spinach or broccoli, and more zinc absorption out of whatever foods that you're eating. So we've got garlic and onion, cooking with them, and then after your meal is ready with the greens, the broccoli, you're squeezing a little bit of lemon juice over that, and that helps with the absorption of iron. There is something that I should have put this slide a little bit earlier so that everyone could practice this while eating. I'm seeing that most people are nearly done, but this is something that we looked at yesterday and the day before: mindful eating. Mindful eating. So while you're eating, you're appreciating the food, appreciating the taste of the food, the color of the food. You're full of gratitude, and hopefully you're chewing. Even though it's soup, you're not swallowing right away. You're chewing. Even with a smoothie, you can put the smoothie in your mouth and swish it around so that the salivary amylase has an opportunity to attack what's in the smoothie and break down the carbohydrates in your mouth, so you'll have better digestion, and then swallow. Part of mindful eating is also not eating beyond 2/3 full, so you're in touch with how you feel in your body. When you're in a rested state while you're eating, so that's hopefully the state that you're in right now, a state that is parasympathetic, meaning the opposite of stress state, then your body goes into rest and digest mode, or a parasympathetic state mode. One of the things that helps is just closing your eyes and breathing. A longer breath out, Shorter breath in. Maybe you breathe in your nose for 4, breathe out your mouth for 7. I did mention the other day, I don't have it here, that with the Shinobi breathing practice, where you take a few breaths, they did do it with stretching first before you eat. They found that women in that study lost weight just by doing breathing before eating. Did anybody try that? You did. All right. Oh, you did. Last night and this morning? Excellent. And was it easy? Not easy? Uh-oh. It hurt your shoulder? Okay. Right. Okay. I was expecting a yes, it was easy. Micah, was it easy? You didn't do the stretch? Okay. And the reason why they found that that was effective, I mean, if you can do the stretching while you're breathing, that's what they did exactly in the study. But if not, then just doing the breathing, a few breaths where your it's important though that your exhalation is always longer than your inhalation. If you do it the other way where your inhalation is longer, you're actually activating the sympathetic nervous system. So you're putting your nervous system into fight or flight. So long exhalation. But in that study, after they examined or did a lab test on their urine and blood, they found that cortisol was lower, that their stress levels were lower. So they're in a parasympathetic state. They're digesting their food better. Cortisol was lower, so they're losing fat. When cortisol is high, your body holds on to fat, especially in the midsection. So my question to you, just things to think about. I do have some things to think about slides tonight. What things are stressing you out in your life? You don't have to answer, but things to think about. What things are stressing you out in your life? What do you feel is impossible to change? And then part of the assignment is to think, is there a different way of seeing this thing? Can I have a different perspective on whatever I feel is impossible to change? Or whatever's stressing you out, you want to look at it from a different angle. I actually heard someone say they would write down their problems, whatever things were stressing them out, on a piece of paper. And literally, to get a different perspective, they put the paper on the table and then go and sit down, turn the paper, go and sit down, and just move around the table to get a different perspective. If I move over here, will I think a different way about that thing that I wrote out? It seems extreme, but that person was Bob Proctor. I don't know if anyone's heard of him. He's Canadian. He was a personal development coach who died maybe 2 years ago, but did very well in helping people break through problems and progress as well. And that was one of his tools. Write it down on a piece of paper, go and sit somewhere else. Now look at the paper for a different perspective. You can try it, but you could also just look at that thing. Can I have a different perspective on this thing that's stressing me out? What are the answers? I really like the idea of, kind of thinking about it as you go for a walk, because often when you're exercising, the answers will come, or you look at it and then go take a shower. Might sound funny, but when you're in your shower, your brain waves actually change, so you're more in a theta brainwave state, which is the brainwave state where your brain's more creative, and the answers might come there. So this is why people have great ideas when they're in the shower, because their brainwave is working in a different brainwave state. So think of it, write it down, go for a walk, or write it down in the morning, then take your shower and see if you get some interesting and productive answers, let's say. What are the benefits of being in a rest and digest state, being out of that state of fight or flight or stress? As I'd said yesterday, being in that state increases weight, normally increases cortisol. Weight goes up, your body holds on to the weight here in the midsection. Getting out of that state lowers blood pressure, promotes better digestion, eliminates waste, and promotes higher immune function. So whenever you're stressed out, you can practice some of the tools that we've talked about here, or even just do the breathing or go for a walk. When you're about to eat, as you did now, you can practice doing the breathing first and then eating your meal. So you're not eating while you're stressed out. One of the things that I just said was when you're stressed out, go for a walk. There's so many benefits to exercise. We didn't have the opportunity to discuss all the benefits, but this was an interesting benefit, the relationship between exercise and having a stronger memory. And this was according to a study at Concord University in Montreal. Exercise has been shown to cause the hippocampus, the part in the brain that's vital for memory and learning, to actually grow in size. This serves to increase mental function in older adults. So if you'd like a better memory, then you want to exercise. It has to be consistent, though. I don't know how much they exercised, but it's consistent exercise to improve your memory. Moving on to this idea. What treasure lies in what is a treat for you? So I was talking to somebody recently, and they said, I would really like to have a treat. And of course, I knew when they said a treat, they didn't mean a walk or a bath. They meant probably chocolate cake or whatever that was. I said that changing your thinking and your perspective on things can be a first step. So I'd like to suggest this. Don't confuse a treat with a mistreat. So the next time you see whatever it is, that baked good, that chocolate cake, and you're thinking this is a treat, change your thinking and put the word miss in front of it. And then you can see it as that's a mistreat. When I eat that chocolate cake, I'm actually mistreating my body. Just try it. Change that word from treat to mistreat. And then going for a walk, that's the treat. So going for a walk is a treat, eating the ultra-processed food, cake, etc., mistreat. I myself tried the mistreat option, as well as pushing chocolate cake and cookies away from me and saying the word yuck, as well as visualizing green slime and all kinds of other things on the cake and the cookies when I felt like that was an addiction. I didn't want one in my life anymore. And did some other extreme things, which I won't talk about here. But I found when I was using the term mistreat, it was like after a while, something changed in my mind. Okay, I'm mistreating my body when I do that. And I still think of mistreat versus treat. So that was a lasting change. Back to basic weight loss principle that we talked about yesterday, and this was one of the tools that we focused on yesterday. Basically, we focused more on intermittent fasting and calorie density. Work with calorie density, not with counting calories. For example, raspberries are so low in calories that you can fill up on them, feel satisfied, enjoy what you're eating, and still keep your calorie count low. But if you went for a raspberry ice cream or maybe raspberry jam, suddenly the calorie count goes up. Vegetables are the lowest in calorie density. I had the calorie density chart up yesterday. The lowest thing on the calorie density chart was the greens, like leafy greens. Second was non-starchy vegetables. So if you're not sure what is low on the calorie density scale, you could start with those two things. You want to fill up with those. They're very bulky. And then you know that you're eating foods that are low in calorie density. Another basic weight loss principle for life, as I said, eat based on the idea of calorie density, which means you're filling your stomach with lower calorie foods. Part of the reason why people continue to eat is they just don't feel full. And when you're not feeling full, then you continue to eat. When you do feel full, hopefully you stop eating, unless it's a mental or emotional craving. And at that point, hopefully you go for a walk. And then you let the bliss hormones take care of that. So fill up your stomach with calorie foods that are low calorie foods. Eat slowly. When you're eating slowly, you're going to activate the stomach stretch receptors that we talked about yesterday. The stomach stretch receptors are going to cause the brain to activate leptin to be secreted from the fat cells. And before you know it, you feel full because leptin is the fullness hormone. Also, and I hope everybody did this today, I think there might be dessert actually, relish your food. You want to enjoy your food, so as much dopamine as possible is being secreted when you're having that healthy meal. Enjoy more and you'll eat less overall. We're going to talk a little bit about dopamine today, and I think we'll have enough time. Preloading, we've already talked about it, and I had a little more on that slide, but I want to make sure we get to dopamine. So, basic weight loss principle, how do I keep it off? Go for high density, high quality foods. Go for low density, high quality foods. Please change that first high to low. We're going for foods that are low in calorie density but high in quality. For example, you have many cups of fruits, vegetables, whole grain, beans. You're going to be full, and that food is higher in quality. Preload, so eat the vegetables, salad, soup, or water first. Eat slowly. So this is a summary slide. Remember, stretch. The idea of my stomach is stretching, so the stretch receptors are being activated. Enjoy your food. Include the recommended spices that we've already talked about, and the herbs every day. Garlic, cumin, whether black or the more common cumin, which is like a brown sable color. Ginger and cayenne. I think I have 2 other things. Little controversial, consider adding apple cider vinegar on your preload salad. Some people have water and apple cider vinegar before their meal. I actually recommend a little bit of lemon in the water, and you have lemon in the water before your meal, which helps with digestion and also to curb cravings. Eat like a pauper for dinner. I've become not liking the word pauper, but I like the idea of going light at night. Instead, you don't want dinner to be your biggest meal unless you're trying to gain weight instead of losing weight. So eat light at night. Okay, finally, before we get to dopamine, I would suggest this. If you're doing all of these things and you're still having a challenge, you might answer this question, which goes back to the psychology of eating. What does food mean to me? What is food to you? And is whatever it is to you changing? So as I'd said with that patient that I had when I asked, and we were talking about what is food to you, he said food was the only source of pleasure in his entire life. That's what food was to him. That's a tough one to change. He made the changes, he lost weight, but then he started going back because he was missing his source of pleasure. I had a patient who was, it seemed like she was losing weight and then just hit a plateau, and we weren't really getting anywhere. So when that happens, I think there's more going on here. I asked her this question: what is food to you? And she had come to Canada when she was 10 or 11 years old, and is now probably late 40s. She might be 50. But hopefully she's not identifiable by that. But I said, I think there's something more going on. What is food to you? And she said eating certain foods for her was like going home, because she'd eat a lot of these foods that she had growing up, overeating them. And when she was eating those foods, she felt like she belonged. Like food, it would remind her of where she was from, etc. So it was very hard to not eat those foods. Like once a week, that was her treat, but she'd really overeat, which meant she was feeling a little bit like she didn't fit in. And then, is it changing? Can you change what food is to you? So part of that shift is just when you're looking at the food, changing how you feel about the food at that time. Can what food is to me change? Food now is my source of longevity. That's how I think of food, usually. It's a source of longevity. Food is my source of youth. It's what gives me energy. It's my source of nutrition, many other things. So when I put these ideas in with food, it's a lot easier not to go with the chocolate cake, because I know that that's not part of my relationship with food. It's not going to help me to live beyond 90 and still running quarter marathons. So changing that relationship, or just asking yourself that question: what's my relationship with food? What is food to me? For a lot of people, food's a source of bonding. Like, people bond over food. People bond with their families over food. You remove those foods and people feel like, I'm removing my source of bonding. Is it possible to bond over other foods? When I was overweight, and we'll see that picture at the end, food was totally my source of bonding. But with other people who ate a lot of pizza and chocolate, and then we'd all get together and pig out together, and we were bonding. And I realized that I can't bond with people that way anymore. I remember having a very difficult conversation with someone where I said, look, we just can't keep eating out like this, because I'm losing weight, you aren't. And if this continues, then I'm going to gain all the weight back. So we kind of have to shift how we're bonding. So food could be bonding. On the other side of the spectrum, food to you could be the fountain of youth. So asking yourself, what is food to me? Coming up with the answer, and then how can I change that? And then just keep coming back to that idea when you're looking at your food, when you're thinking of your food, and eventually you'll get there to where you've changed your relationship with food. One of the things that makes it hard or easy to change our habits, even that relationship with food, is the chemical in our brain that's called dopamine. So I want to talk a little bit about dopamine. I think maybe we're going to be finishing early tonight, but I said that yesterday and we finished right on time. But I want to talk a bit about dopamine, make sure that we fit it in. There are a few key elements involved in making a habit change. And really, that's what we're talking about this whole week. We've been talking about making lifestyle changes, which is really making a habit change. One of those elements is dopamine. Dopamine is the brain's reward and pleasure drug. The other is our memory and how these two things work together. Your brain really remembers something that's pleasurable, really remembers how great something felt, and when you're having that experience, a heavy memory is laid down. Basically, I don't know if I talked about the brain's accounting system, but basically when there's a sudden hit of dopamine, then that triggers the prefrontal cortex, which is the decision-making area in the brain, to decide this must be really important, which then triggers the hippocampus to basically lay down a memory. We want to remember this thing so that we'll do it again because it felt so great. It can work for you, or obviously it can work against you. We're going to talk about how to make it work for you. I think we've probably at one point or another experienced how it works against you. So our brains are wired to increase the odds that we're going to repeat pleasurable activities. Whenever that reward circuit of dopamine, the hippocampus, the behavior is activated, the reward circuit of experiencing pleasure is activated, a burst of dopamine signals that something important is happening that needs to be remembered. Your brain doesn't know, is it good for you or is it bad for you? It just knows a lot, it's very pleasurable, and a lot of dopamine is being secreted. And the prefrontal cortex, the rational area in your mind, the decision maker, it's kind of like, you could say, the accountant thinks, when I do this activity, a little bit of dopamine secreted, not much. But the accountant in the brain, which is the prefrontal cortex, would say, but when I do this activity, a lot more dopamine is being secreted. Let's see, a little bit of dopamine, a lot of dopamine. We want to remember this. We don't want to remember this. It's not important. But of course, it's usually the opposite, not always. Based on the NIH, which is the American National Institute of Health, pleasure-based habits, they are hard to break because enjoyable behavior, prompts your brain to secrete a lot of dopamine. So, how do you create a new habit? Or how do you make a lifestyle change, which we're hoping you'll be inspired to make as part of this these workshops and conference. How do you create a new habit? You want to make dopamine work for you instead of against you. Make your brain's dopaminergic accounting system in the prefrontal cortex work in the favor of your new habit and your new routine. You're probably saying, okay, how do I do that? So this is a way of making dopamine work for you instead of dopamine working against you. You, number one, reward yourself for your positive behavior. Every time you reward yourself and you feel that reward, dopamine secreted. So today I was talking about how to reward yourself. At the end of the week, reward yourself. Don't reward yourself with food, especially if food is one of the things you're trying to change. You can reward yourself just with a, woohoo, I did it. Easy as that. High five in the mirror every day. This is, I don't know if anybody's read a lot of Mel Robbins. Does anybody? No. Totally fell flat. So Mel Robbins wrote a book about rewarding behavior, and it's based on the high five rule. Every day, going in the mirror and then saying to yourself whatever you did. Like, oh, I went for a 30-minute walk yesterday. Awesome, high five. And high-fiving yourself, which is a way of rewarding yourself, which causes secretion of dopamine, which makes it easier for you to do it again. So you can high five yourself. You can just jump and shout, I did it. When we're auditory with ourselves, then your brain remembers, wow, that was a positive experience. Henry, did you have a comment? You don't like looking in the mirror. You know what? You can change that by when you look in the mirror, you say, hey, gorgeous, how are you? Yes. It might take a while. It might take a while. But you want to do something to reward your positive behavior. And you want to do that thing shortly after the behavior. So you finish your 45-minute hike. Right after you finish the hike, you jump up and down, you shout, woohoo, I did it, go home, high five yourself in the mirror, something shortly after the behavior, so that that connection between the behavior and secretion of dopamine is kind of solidified. The next day, maybe not the next day, but over time it's going to be easier going for the hike. Does that make sense? Reward your behavior. I actually did a corporate program where I told everyone to shout at the end of following one of the lifestyle changes. And then I asked them the next week, did everybody shout after you did whatever it was? You finished eating at 6:30. And there was one woman who was so psyched about this, I should say very excited about this idea of shouting, that her husband, who was also in the program, was like, what is happening here? Like, my wife is shouting and screaming, and he wasn't that much into the shouting idea. But she was very happy. Yes, did you have a question? Yes. Mm-hmm. Don't put the water bottle there. Oh, excellent. Mm-hmm. Oh, and so water's your treat? That's a great treat. That is definitely a treat and not a mistreat. And after a little bit of time, you won't naturally reach for the water when you're eating. I think because many people, most of us have been doing that for our whole lives, then it feels really odd to eat without taking a bite and then swallowing with, or chugging it down with some water. So it'll probably take a while before you feel comfortable. But while you're chewing your food without the water, you can think, I love this. I'm increasing my digestion. I'm doing something good for me. That's actually going to cause more dopamine to be secreted, which will make it easier for you to keep doing it. I love this, whatever the change is. You've probably heard the term, you can't teach an old dog, thank you. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. I don't know about dogs, But in terms of people, you definitely can learn things regardless of your age. The one thing that's different, this is called neuroplasticity, is when people are young and as kids, they kind of easily learn things. When you get older, you can still learn a lot of new things. You can create new brain cells, which is called neurogenesis, the growth of new neurons. You can have neuroplasticity. At one point it was thought once you're an adult, your brain doesn't change, which they know that's a fallacy now. As an adult, your brain continues to change. A few things have to be a little bit different. As kids, it's like I often hear kids are described as sponges. They just pick it up. As adults, one of the things that kind of triggers or activates neuroplasticity is focus. You have to focus. You have to be deliberate. So when you are rewarding yourself or enjoying your food, you have to intentionally, there has to be a level of intention and focus there. And when we're more focused, our brain secretes a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine, which helps with neuroplasticity, and your brain starts changing. So it's not just going to happen on its own. This goes for anything you're trying to learn. A new language, riding a bike. Hopefully everyone knows how to ride a bike by now, but maybe not. Whatever it is, it's not going to come as easy as when you were a child. But if you focus and you enjoy it, you've got higher acetylcholine, higher dopamine. It's going to become easier and easier. And that's the way you can teach an old dog new tricks. So you can throw that saying out. You can always learn. It just takes a little more focus and a little more intention. And our brain does change. Dopamine is the reward chemical that will strengthen whatever that new habit is. The new habit might be going for a walk 15 minutes after you finish eating. I'm not suggesting everyone just leaves here while I'm talking and goes out. But while you're going for that walk, after the series is over, when you go for that walk, when you're walking, you want to enjoy it. Think, I'm doing something good. I'm treating myself. Relish it, and really, and the other way that dopamine's automatically secreted is through smiling. So when you're walking, you can walk and smile. You can walk and laugh. And if people think that's weird, that's okay. Walking, smiling, walking, laughing, more smiling, more laughing, some chuckling as well is going to increase dopamine. So dopamine's the reward chemical that will strengthen that new habit and create that craving over time. Ooh, I want to do it again because it felt good. And when you have that feeling like, ooh, this feels good, that actually means my brain's secreting dopamine. Remove old cues, replace them with new cues. This is not just neurogenesis, but it's called creating a new neural network. So the way that our brain works is all of these little things here are brain cells. And brain cells, when they fire together, when you're excited or doing something, they wire together. So hopefully this will make sense, but brain cells kind of group together like a thick cable. A thick cable that's made up of strands of thinner cables. They all come together to make a thick cable. And that thick cable is basically your habit. It's something you've been doing again and again and again. When you start doing something new, so brain cells or neurons that fire apart, wire apart, you start doing something new. One of those little cables branches off and it goes somewhere else. And the more you do it, the cables branch off and they create a new thick cable. This is your new habit. This change does not happen within 3 weeks. You may have heard it takes 3 weeks to create a new habit. Based on studies, sorry to disappoint you, not true. It takes more time. You can speed it up, make it easier by removing the old cues. Let's say you are trying to quit smoking, but you used to smoke when you drank, and you usually drank when you went to a pub or a bar. You've decided, I don't want to smoke anymore, but I'm still going to the bar with my friends. As soon as you get to that bar, your brain is going to get the cue to drink some alcohol. When you drink the alcohol, the cue comes, smoke a cigarette. So after all of that, if you're still in the bar, you're there trying not to smoke a cigarette. You're probably taking a drink, which is going to make it harder. And you're like, oh, no, well, and usually you finally say, or unless you leave, well, maybe just one. Remove the old cue. So you're still working on that neural network of I go to the bar and I drink alcohol. When I'm at the alcohol, I smoke a cigarette. Even the smell at the bar can be a cue. You have to remove the old cue, which is you don't go to the bar anymore. It's not a matter of willpower. That's a matter of neural networking. Replace it with a new cue. I now go rock climbing. And when I go rock climbing, I'm doing something that's healthy for me, and it's the complete opposite of what I used to do. And then if you really want that to become a new habit, you have to just keep doing it again and again and again. How long do you think it takes to create a new habit? How much? 20 days? Anybody else? 21 days? 3 to 6 weeks, 3 months. Okay. The closest there is probably 3 months. So according to, is it here? No? Okay. I'll just tell you. But it's on one of these slides. According to studies, it takes 6 to 9 weeks. So 6 to 9 weeks. Okay, not quite 3 months. But 6 weeks, a month and a half. To create a new habit. So 20 days, 21 days, it's a little bit of a fallacy. You have to be consistent, keep doing the same thing. For some people, it might only be a month and a half. For some people, it might be 2 months or a little bit longer. Yes? 2 years. Maybe for some people, that's if you keep going back to the same location or doing the same things and you're trying not to. Make it easier by getting rid of that old cue. According to the British Journal of General Practice, habits are actions that are triggered automatically in response to the cues, in response to contextual cues that are associated with their performance. So this is kind of like the bar being a cue. So change the cue, and you change the habit. You want to get to the point where the habits you're learning here that we're talking about are automatic. Takes a little while, but consistency is key. According to studies, as I said, this can take 6 to 9 weeks on average. You can make it easy by using the idea of a hook. So this is, you're changing your cue, but you want something new to be solidified. How do you make it easier? Aside from rewarding yourself, smiling, laughing, etc., enjoying it, is there something else you can do? You can make it easier by creating a neuro hook. And that's probably my own term. But you create an already created habit. What does that mean? This is according to Dr. Rangan Chatterjee. He is a British physician and an author who also has a podcast, who had a show on the BBC where he went into people's houses, did a pantry clean out, and actually stayed with them to help them change their habits. But what he found, and he writes about this in his book, he realized a hook was the answer. So he'd have patients who would come in, and patients who had cardiovascular disease, he'd encourage them to lose weight, and he wanted to focus on exercise. So he'd say, 30 minutes of walking per day. Just easy. That same patient would come back a month later. Did you walk for 30 minutes? And they would say, no. But why would they say no? No? Excellent. I didn't have the time. I can't fit it into my schedule. So it's like, okay, maybe some people are so busy they don't have 30 minutes. Didn't have the time. So he'd cut it down. Okay, how about 15 minutes? Do you think you could do 15 minutes of exercise a day? I think I can do 15 minutes of exercise per day. That patient would come back. Did you do the exercise? No. Why not? You know what? Even 15 minutes, it's hard for me to squeeze in 15 minutes per day. So we started thinking there must be something else going on here. How about 5 minutes? Can you exercise for 5 minutes per day? Sure, anybody can exercise or do something for 5 minutes. Patient would come back. Did you exercise? No. You don't have 5 minutes per day. Well, I'm finding it difficult. So he realized it wasn't the time. It was more just that introduction, possibly, of a new habit. Yes, maybe 30 minutes was too long, but when it came down to nobody doing 5 minutes of exercise per day consistently, he thought something else is going on here. And how can I help these patients to actually do at least 5 minutes of exercise per day? So he worked with this idea of a hook. For one patient, he said, describe your schedule to me from the time you wake up until about 11 o'clock. She said, I wake up in the morning, I get dressed, I go downstairs, I put the coffee machine on. Not that I am encouraging drinking coffee, but this was the example. I put the coffee machine on, I sit down, I read the paper, the coffee's ready, I get the coffee, I go back upstairs, put on my makeup, etc., and I drive to work. He said, okay, you know what? We need to use something that you do routinely here as a hook. We're going to add the new thing onto something you always do. So we're working with a positive, if you want to say that, old cue, to add a new cue on. He said, I think once you get up, you go downstairs, you turn the coffee machine on, and then you sit and read the newspaper. Are you willing to give up reading the newspaper to do something else? Which she was trying, as an experiment. How long does it take before the coffee's ready? Between 5 and 7 minutes. Perfect. We're going to use that as a trigger. I don't like the word trigger because sometimes people think there's a bad connotation, so I say hook. As soon as you turn on the coffee machine, that's going to be your hook. Now you spend 5 to 7 minutes doing jumping jacks, burpees, squats, planks, and then your reward is now you drink your coffee. So he squeezed in the exercise between putting the coffee on and taking the coffee and drinking the coffee. And he did this with every patient that he was having a challenge with, and he realized that was very effective because they already have this neural network of whatever it is, putting on the coffee. And then if you hook something onto that every time, the more she did it, every time she put the coffee on, her brain's sending that message, do the exercises now. And at the end of the exercises, I get the reward, dopamine, I get to drink my coffee now. So I would encourage everyone, I'm not saying use coffee as a cue or use coffee as your hook, but think about during your day, is there something that I can hook this new habit onto? Maybe you want to do the exercise first thing in the morning when your testosterone's high and you want your cortisol to be regulated. Is there something early in the morning that you can hook this onto? Exercise or whatever that new thing is. Exercise is an easy one. It could be 5 to 7 minutes, something that you can do consistently. Does that make sense? And you get so many benefits when you're doing that 5 to 7 minutes of exercise. The other thing that you want to do, aside from that new cue and new habit, is you want to break old habits. You want less dopamine to be secreted when you look at that thing that you're trying to stop. So I said that I used to visualize the cookies with green slime on it, etc., push it away. So when you look at the cookies, even though you might be thinking initially, yum, you look at the cookies and you say, yuck, I hate cookies. Push them away. And you do that every day. Ugh, yuck, I hate cookies. When you look at the spinach salad, you say, spinach salad, I love it. I'm so glad I'm about to eat a spinach salad. And more dopamine's being secreted. The more dopamine that's being secreted, your brain's going to do the work for you and give you a craving to eat the spinach salad and not a craving to eat the cookies. Does that make sense? Doesn't happen in one day, but it will happen over time. So we want to continue to work with our brain's dopaminergic system. A few ideas. The basic idea is this. Our brain works in patterns that are called neural networks. These patterns manifest as your behavior and my behavior. You want to examine your patterns of behavior, and you'll find that sometimes your patterns of behavior come down to your thinking. If one of your patterns of behavior is based on fear or an emotion, that might be affecting your brain, your behavior, and your body in a way that you don't realize. So when you go home today, I would suggest that you examine and think about your own patterns of behavior. What is it that I'm doing that I find I'm constantly doing, but really I don't want to do? Write that down, whatever it is. And then what can I do that is the opposite of that thing? Write that down. How can I reward myself for this new behavior? Some kind of reward. It might be the high five. It might be, wow, this is amazing. Whatever your reward for that new behavior is, make sure you're rewarding yourself right after you do that new behavior. So more dopamine is going to be secreted. I think we might actually end early today, as I said. So I'm wrapping up with this summary slide. This is a summary slide of things that we've talked about for weight loss. Not everything is squeezed on this slide, but we talked about reducing stress. I will ask you, though, why is reducing stress important for weight loss? Because your cortisol... Okay, so your cortisol is going to go down if you reduce stress. How does that affect weight loss? Because what? Doesn't hold on to your fat. Okay, great. Cortisol is an appetite stimulant. So you're going to, if cortisol is high, you're going to eat more food. And when cortisol is high, then the fat is held or kind of retained in the abdominal area. Reduce stress, you reduce cortisol, you reduce those cravings, you reduce that appetite being stimulated, you reduce the fat being held in the abdominal area. Maybe I'll ask you this, since we're on the final slide. How do you reduce stress? A story. Okay, you can go for a walk. Maybe I'll give you the mic to tell the story. Or not. Or I'll moonwalk back to where I was. Okay. Yes. Oh. Right. I did see a bear last night, actually. So, yes, you go for a walk, maybe on a treadmill. I don't know. Might be a little bit different walking at Lillooet at night, but you could go for a walk on the main street where the bears and the deer don't hang out. The bears are on the main street. The bears in your backyard. I don't know, this is obviously a different context. You walk on the spot. You just stay where you are, and there you go. If you're in Lillooet, you walk on the spot at night. If it's during the day, you go out. That's a good compromise. Any other ways to reduce stress? Breathing, make sure that your exhalation's longer. Singing. With singing, you're doing the breathing, and it's fun as well. Was that, Henry? Sudoku, if you love it, then yes. If you feel more frustrated doing it, then no, because that would increase stress. Anyone else? Ooh, hot bath. Excellent. And you can actually, did I hear somebody say with bubbles? So hot bath with bubbles, put a little bit of lavender essential oil in it, and it's definitely stress reducing. Did you say something, Kathy? Knitting. As I said, my brother was a big knitter, so knitting is very calming, unless you keep missing a stitch, and then it's very frustrating, and then you have to undo the whole thing. But yes, knitting. Go ahead. Cold plunge. Interestingly enough, people find that stressful, and in studies they found initially when you do the cold plunge, it actually increases adrenaline, but then afterwards it brings your fight or flight hormones down. So cold plunge, immediately after you might feel stress a little higher, and then everything relaxes. Watch a John Wayne movie. Sure, if you find that relaxing, then yes, but not late at night before bedtime. Any other Any other suggestions? I think you've probably said, what's that? Burn your diffuser. Put your diffuser on and use an oil that is very comforting and relaxing. So you could put the lavender oil on your diffuser 30 minutes before bed, and then you're breathing that in, and stress is low before bedtime, which is really helpful. Pray, reading a book, etc. So you've probably, I don't think there's anything on my stress reduction slide that we haven't said. Music. Music as long as there's a lot of harmony in the music. Music where there's disharmony actually activates the stress response, so people get riled up. That would be music more like Metallica, but music where there's a lot of harmony in it then causes the nervous system to go down and people feel relaxed instead of psyched or riled up. Examine emotional eating. So this is a personal point. You ask yourself, am I eating, let's say habitually, based on emotional reasons? And then you sit and get the answer. Yes. Okay, what else can I do? What is the emotional thing in my life that's driving me to eat? Okay, what is the answer? And if you can't get the answer right away, it's a situation, whatever it is, what can I do to counter the emotional eating or that craving? I can exercise, I can relax, etc. And when you do that, then maybe that emotional craving will go down. Improve sleep. In studies, as I mentioned, in the studies where that group was kind of deprived of sleep and their sleep hours were down to 5 hours per night, they gained nearly 2 pounds in 5 days. So optimally, 7 hours, 8 hours, 9 hours of sleep, and then more than 5 hours of sleep. Beware of only getting 5 hours of sleep per night, because 5 hours of sleep per night or less is what was found to cause weight gain instead of weight loss. Exercise, as we've already talked about, and as based on Tim's question, exercise early in the morning. That's the time based on your circadian rhythm where testosterone's higher. It also sets your cortisol levels for the entire day. Exercising in the morning has been found to cause a better sleep at night. But if you can't, then exercise when you can, just not before bed. Diet. What can you do? Easy things. We've talked about so many different things to do, but easy things to do to help with weight loss within your diet or nutrition. Number 1, eliminate processed foods. Number 2, we said it today, it's not there. Eliminate sugar. Number 3, increase vegetables and fruits. Eating times. I've said it at different times, but I don't think I actually had it written on a slide. So eating times, we did discuss it with the intermittent fasting. I said you could start at around 10 or 10:30. That way you're finished at about 6 or 6:30. That's an 8-hour eating window, 16-hour fasting window. It doesn't mean with 8-hour eating window you're eating all the time. Basically you eat. It's not a continuous eating window. You eat, you wait about 4 hours or to 4.5 hours with no snacking. Then you eat again. You wait 4 to 4.5 hours, no snacking. You eat that final meal, which is the lightest meal of the day. Make lunch the biggest if you're trying to lose weight. Eat that final meal, which is light, and then after that you don't eat again until the next day. So that if you're finishing at about 6:30, the next day you're eating at about 10:30. Calorie density, not calorie counting. Easiest way of knowing which foods are dense in calories, normally foods that are not in their original form. So it would be corn chips are high in calorie density, corn is low in calorie density. Potato chips are high in calorie density, potatoes are lower in calorie density. Lowest foods in calorie density would be things like greens. After that, non-starchy vegetables. After that, I don't remember exactly how that slide went, but we're getting to starchy vegetables. and then higher in calorie density oils, fruits, or oils, nuts, seeds, avocados, then meat, eggs, etc. So how do you know? You can basically eyeball it. Is this food in its natural form? Did it fall off a tree? Did it grow off of a bush? At one point, was it in the ground and then not tampered with? And if it's in that original state, it's probably lower in calorie density. Herbal tea or spicy tea. This is my idea. 2 different ideas there. Between meals, you could drink an herbal tea. If you're just getting accustomed to this idea of not snacking between meals, then you can drink an herbal tea between meals. It might be something like peppermint, which helps with digestion. It might be something like ginger, which helps to warm the body, especially in wintertime, also helps with digestion. It might be something like lavender, but you don't want to get too relaxed, especially if you're at work. And then you don't feel like working for the rest of the day. It might be a lemon ginger blend, so good for digestion, also good for removing toxins, and it tastes delicious. And you're doing that between meals, or you might choose to make a tea out of those spices, the weight loss spices that we mentioned, the garlic, the cumin, maybe black cumin, the ginger, the cayenne, and then just add hot water. And a lot of people like to add a little bit of sweet to their tea. If you don't need to, excellent. But if you do, you can add just a drizzle of maple syrup or just a tiny bit of honey. And if you're choosing a honey, I always like Manuka honey. It's a little more expensive, but it is a very powerful antiviral, antifungal, and antibacterial. Finally, remember it's about food choices and food times. You might make the right food choices, but you're eating at midnight, and then you're not going to get the benefit. Even in the study where they did of intermittent fasting, where they were eating at up until 8 p.m., right food choices, but eating until late, their blood sugar levels didn't come down. Their blood pressure didn't come down. So you want to start earlier. I showed a slide yesterday where they finished based on that study at 4 p.m., a little bit too early to finish eating, though. I mean, Janie said that she's been doing it for years, so it's possible. It has to kind of be sustainable for you. So these are all great ideas. How do you make it your own? How is it sustainable for you? You work with the basic principles and then put them into your life. There are some things that you just have to say goodbye to, so that's like a radical change, like the cigarettes. And how do you do that? By changing the cue, by starting something new, by rewarding yourself. And then there are other things where you're thinking, okay, I can't start at 10 a.m., but I can start at 9 a.m. If I start at 9, then I'm having my dinner at 5. So the basic principle is I'm working with an 8-hour eating window, but I'm not eating late. So adjusting some things. I can't eat at 9 and 4 is 13, at 1 and at 5, but I can go maybe 5 hours. So I eat at 9, I eat at 2, and then I eat at 6. Keeping in mind that for most people, if they go past 5 hours, they get very hungry. So you never want to start your meal ravenous, because then you won't follow the eating order we talked about. You're going to grab the bread and then the rice, and you might not even get to the salad. By that time, you're already full, and the salad doesn't look as appealing. Before I ask about questions, and we are going to end early tonight, I want to give you the list of the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen, and also a list of Dr. Daniel Amen's 10 foods for brain health. The Clean 15. Oy, oy, oy. Okay. Clean 15. Avocados. Corn. Sweet corn. Pineapple. Onions. Papaya. Sweet peas. I can create a list and put it up on the slides tomorrow. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. You can just listen right now then. Asparagus, honeydew melon, kiwi, cabbage, mushrooms, mangoes, sweet potatoes, watermelon, and carrots. For the longest time, I always got organic carrots and juiced organic carrots, literally until like right before coming to Lillooet. But now I will not spend my money on organic carrots. Instead, I will spend it on organic for the Dirty Dozen. The Dirty Dozen. These are things where it would probably be worth it to buy them organic. And most of them, fruits and vegetables, peaches, apples, strawberries. As I said, strawberries, I remember hearing years ago that strawberries were similar to cotton, like just in how absorbable they are. Grapes, especially if they're imported, cherries, nectarines, pears, red raspberries, sweet bell peppers, celery. Organic celery is very expensive, but worth it, especially if you're going to be juicing with celery. Spinach, as you had said, Maggie, lettuce, tomatoes, and then just organic milk or organic meat if that's something that you are eating. Dirty Dozen. So better to get it organic, I mean. Yeah. Let's look at Dr. Daniel Amen's, and I have a trick on how to remember Dr. Daniel Amen's foods. Foods for brain health. Maybe. Very quiet. Okay. I'm going to try to remember the foods for brain health by Dr. Daniel Amen. Okay, his 7 foods. One of them starts here by touching your head. I actually did this with a group of kids that I was teaching. Touching your head, what's inside of your head? A brain. What food looks like a brain? Walnut. Okay, walnuts. The next one is you'd imagine something that is small and a blackish blue that's popping out of your ears. What was that? Blueberries. The next is you'd imagine something that is green and oval and it's hanging off your ears like a giant earring. Avocados. Excellent. The next is you'd imagine that you're wearing an outfit that has shoulder pads from the 1980s, and your shoulder pads are this yellowy, mustardy kind of color. Okay, that wasn't a good description. But they're that color because the spice is all over them. It's turmeric. Along with turmeric goes hemp seeds. The next is you have a necklace on. Not that I'm encouraging that people wear necklaces. And at the end of the necklace, you have this pendant that's about this long, and it's kind of white, and it's kind of chunky. It's a type of nut that's high in selenium. Brazil nuts. And I think that is as far as my game goes because I can't remember the rest. So the slide tomorrow will actually have those on it, but that easy way of remembering at least those: walnuts, blueberries, avocados, turmeric, Brazil nuts. And we'll have the rest on a slide tomorrow. Does anybody have any questions? Go ahead. Okay. 7:30. Do you want to use the mic?
This hotel had an 8-page menu. Jim Jeffries turned the menu over. He looked it all over. He said, I don't see a thing wrong with it. Bring it on.
Eight-page menu. Hopefully he would eat until he's 2/3 full and then say, I can't take another bite. Yes, go ahead. Yeah, tomorrow's lunch. Beetroot.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I recommend when we're doing juicing or I put somebody on a juice fast.
Yes.
Beets. But usually it's a combination of the beets because beets are so sweet. Beets mixed with carrot together, which is delicious. Beets also are high in nitric oxide, which actually opens up the blood vessels. So in this way, it can help with lowering blood pressure and better blood flow, which a lot of men appreciate.
Thank you very much.
I'll just leave it at that.
Part of the stress relief.
Stress reduction. Any other questions? All right. Okay. So I know it's 7:27. I've got 3 minutes to finish the water. So we are going to end early today. If you have any other questions, then please come see me after. And I want to thank everyone who came today for their in-body test. And if you have any questions about it, feel free to come see me sometime tomorrow. I will be circulating and orbiting this area, and we'll see everyone tomorrow night. Let's end with a prayer.
Where's the picture?
Oh my gosh. Good one. Where is the picture?
She's gonna play all innocent like she's
Oh.
not. Every night she's pushing it back.
No, I did. Oh, I did put it in here, but I suddenly I can't see it.
It's taking up the whole screen. I have to zoom in.
Oh, how strange.
Come on, let's see. Let's see.
Good question. No, I really. One moment.
Yes, we.
So I'm going to do this. How do I get off of that? Stop the airplay. You're momentarily unable to see what's on here. I do like pink, but no, that's not me. Lillooet. Thanks, Maggie. Where did it go? Thank you for being patient.
It's not like there's about to be a butt.
I did put the picture into the slide presentation. Maybe I'll show you off of my Gmail account, which I sent it to. Oh, there it is.
Gmail put on another 20 pounds?
Okay, it's not on the lovely slide the way that I created it. I'm not sure why it didn't make it onto the slide, because I changed the background to make it really pretty, but this is the original picture. So I'll share the airplay again. Oh, hold on. Not quite working. Okay, can you see it? Hold on. Okay, I will put it on the lovely slide. I don't know what happened to it. I made it a nice blue so that, I know, I'm looking kind of chubby there. I wasn't happy. A friend was taking a picture. At that time, I didn't like to take pictures. And a friend was taking a picture of me, which I was like, roar. And yes, that was before I started just kind of growing blonde hair. And
How old are you? How old are you there?
20-ish, maybe.
You look much older there than you do.
I look older there? Janie, you are my best friend. Thank you. Yes, quite a bit heavier than I am right now. And I remember my thighs used to rub against each other, and I was pretty unhappy about that. That's the picture. There you go. I might not have to put it on a very beautiful slide. Like I had a slide that matched the blue, so you can't see it as much. I don't know what happened to it, though.
Photoshop the smile.
Slim it down a bit. But that is the reality of the old situation, and as you can see, I don't look like that anymore.
How long did it take you from when you decided to whip yourself into shape?
Yeah. It actually took, well, there were a couple of decisions. So I decided I wanted to lose weight, but I didn't know how. So that probably took about 4 years of yo-yo dieting and trying all these different diets, the tomato soup diet. I remember that if I just eat tomato soup, starvation, the lemon juice diet, etc. But then when I realized that there are a few key things that you do and it's possible, which was when I met a friend. This is in the book, actually. I met a friend who was overweight, who then, I hadn't seen him for a while, and when I met him, I used to play a lot of pool, so there I was playing pool, and he arrived, and he was slender, and I said, oh my gosh, what did you do? And it made me believe it was possible. He told me maybe 3 or 4 things, which I implemented, and within 4 months, I lost a lot of weight. Like, it all came out. I lost so much weight that I got stretch marks. It's like full vulnerability tonight. And I didn't realize if you lost weight too fast that you get stretch marks. And I just, so I just implemented a few things. I got rid of all the ultra-processed foods, so no more chocolate bars and pizza and Harvey's and cake. Yeah, I know. And to imagine I was eating that stuff, literally the chocolate every day. And he said, don't eat at night and start eating breakfast. And it was that simple. And so it took about 4 months. And look at me now. I'd be happy taking a picture now. Thank you. Thanks. So on that note, let's end with a prayer as I close that. And let's pray. Dear God, we're so thankful for another day of life. And Lord, we thank you just for the opportunity to come here, Lord, that we can learn. And I'm praying and asking, God, that you'll be with everyone here who wants to make changes in their lives, to implement the changes, and that you'll help them, God, because your word says that with you, anything's possible. I say things in Jesus' name, amen. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow night.